What's up, everyone? How are you doing today? I hope you're doing well. I'm going to try to beef up. No, the lighting looks pretty good. I think that will work. Hopefully, the audio works tonight, unlike the other night. It sounds like it is. What's up, everyone? It's a beautiful Sunday evening, and we're getting like 12 inches of snow tonight. So it's gonna be fun digging that out tonight. Or tomorrow morning, I should say. I've already knocked the snow off. We had about 4 inches already. I wanted to knock the snow off of the carports so that they wouldn't collapse on our projects. But or the 63 caddy, that would be pretty sad. Hope you're all doing well. I know I'm pretty excited to be digging into the square body. This weekend we were able to get the old TBI 350 out, and that's now at my stepdad's house. The video for that will be next week. This week we have the last video on the Supra, and then we're going to be deep into the square body. We have quite a lot to do on that thing. A lot. Fortunately, the frame is in really good shape, but we have new suspension, new upper and lower control arms. We're going to rebuild. I'm going to attempt to rebuild the brake calipers. We'll see how they turn out. Worst case scenario, we pop them open, they're not good. We'll have to spring for new ones, which I've had really bad luck with replacement or remanufactured brake calipers the past few years. So we'll go ahead and see what we can do with that. Let's see. So I want to start off with asking you guys a couple questions so we can kind of have a conversation back and forth. One of the big questions that I've had for myself, and I've kind of posed the question in the comment section, but I really haven't gotten a lot of feedback. I'm thinking I might end up doing, what do you call it? Two-tone. We might go back to doing some two-tone on it. Currently, I'm doing a safety red, Rust-Oleum. That's going to cover the entire car or the whole truck, and then we're going to, make the decision if we want to go darker or lighter. It's a lot easier to paint over a lighter color than a darker color. And the big question is, do we put the big white, I wouldn't really call it a billboard on the side of it, kind of like a Mopar would be called a billboard, but that almost like a hockey puck or a hockey stick that goes from front to back. So I haven't decided. I kind of like the solid red. The white will make it a little bit more classy because it'll break it up a bit. It's big. It'll be a lot of red. But that's a question I want to pose to you. We have brand new fenders going on it. We're going to keep the original hood. We have new grill. The radiator core support is out. It's actually over there. It looks really good. I'm pretty pleased with it. There's a little bit of surface rust, but for a square body, they tend to rot out. Kind of like, so what generally will happen is the batteries that were left on it will leak. Kind of like what we had in our 1970 Buick Skylark. The radiator core support was just toast, and unfortunately the passenger inner fender well was also just trashed, so we had to replace that. Buddy, how you doing tonight? Buddy says waiting for more Buick. So currently, everything costs money. I need to finish the square body. That's our work truck. That's everything. That's what I'm going to be using to bring kids to an event. Be able to tow one of the, either the Supra or the Buick to an event that's, say 3,000 miles away or something like that. Neither one of those vehicles, so the Buick, we drove that 2,500 miles home. It was actually very comfortable, but it also had a 2014 Cherokee seat in it, a Grand Cherokee seat, no less. So it was actually pretty comfortable. Far less comfortable with the factory bucket seats in it. And that thing drones. The Supra drones. Not so bad because it's got a lot of sound deadening in it. But yeah, we need to get the truck kind of squared away. And this week we pulled the I don't know if I already said this, but we pulled the 350 out. I'm like super stoked about it. So I did a little bit of damage accidentally. When I was shifting things around, I had the electronics sitting on top of the cowl, and I didn't notice this until after I had already pulled it out. I looked at it and I saw, oh no, and I saw it in the video. Things were shifting around and the electronics fell from the TBI and got caught between the valve cover and the box for the air conditioner, which is, I want to say it's reinforced fiberglass thermoset plastic. So we're going to do a repair on that. That's going to be a video. It's not terrible, but it cracked it, pushed it in. So the hey, more content, I guess, because that's what I want to do is repair a thermoset plastic. They're better than trying to fix Bakelite, but not by much. So yeah, I would like to. I have over there a 6.0 LQ4 engine that is going to be twin turbo and with a goal of over 1,000 horsepower. The Supra's goal is between 600 and 700. I'll be happy if it's a higher than 700 horsepower. But the Buick, I want it to be a pure drag car. The Supra, I want it to be street and like Lime Rock. I don't see a purpose of having multiple drag cars. Just every car can be a race car. Changed my mind on that. I think the white stripe would look good back on the truck. Yeah, that was from Thomas. I keep going back and forth on it, and I'm like, extra work, but classy. Let's see. Buddy says two-tone, that's what your grandfather had it. Yep. I think we're going to probably go back. Here's the question. If we keep it two-tone, do we go with the safety, stay with the safety red, which is, I put that more on there because the E-coating doesn't like to be left exposed for very long. It will start to degrade, and then you're chasing rust. We're replacing panels, and we're trying to avoid that. So, we prepped it. We put the self-etching primer on any spot that had any exposed steel. Then we put the primer on it, and then we slapped it with the safety red. Now, this is all just Rust-Oleum paint. It's nothing super amazing. That being said, I've had really good luck with it when you spray it and you have it thinned and put hardener in it. And eventually, when it's all done, so we already did the bed, we're going to do the front. And then what we'll do is we'll go back and paint the whole truck, because then it's one consistent color. Even though if it's from the same can or not, mixing will be a little bit different with the thinner and the hardener, so that could change the tone of it. But your temperature and your humidity. Like, I shot the bed of the truck and it was like 40% humidity. Getting a 40% humidity day is like really, that's a good day. That's a really, really good day. So anything under 70% humidity, I'll spray. Anything underneath 90 degrees, I'll spray. And then we spray the whole truck. So it's one consistent color. It'll look pretty good. The safety red does look good. I think it looks good. It's almost like a Corvette red. I really dig it. Especially in person. It's the best way I can describe it is a C4 Corvette with the really red, like that really nice red, or I think it's called bright red from Buick in 1970. That's about, I would say it's pretty close to bright red, but not bright red from 1989. That's not very bright. That square body has bright red, and it's not very bright. So now that we have the 350 out, the big thing is stripping the old suspension, the brake lines. I haven't replaced the brake lines all the way to the bed yet. I was waiting until I had it all out. So we're going to strip that. We'll be able to put the new fuel tanks in. We have two of them, two 20-gallon fuel tanks. We have one of them already set up so that I can run the engine in the garage. And so all we have to do is just drain the gas out, because I put like a half tank of gas in it. I don't know why, but I put a lot of gas in it. So it's easy. Just put power to the pump. It'll just pour it right back into the containers, and then I'll throw it inside the Caprice or something. And so we need to put the fuel tanks in, run new fuel lines, run a Pollock valve that is upgraded from the factory. The factory Pollock valve, so if you're doing one of these upgrades, whether it's an LS engine or even if you're, say, upgrading from the TBI to a Holly, let's see, I think, yeah. So the Holly Sniper, I believe, runs at about 60 PSI too. Someone can correct me on that. It's basically fuel injectors inside the body. You can't get away with the 11 PSI that the TBI runs off of. So you're gonna strip all that out and you're gonna upgrade it. Our factory Pollock valve can only handle the factory pressure. You're going to want to upgrade that to the, what do you call it? 60. I think it's 60 pounds availability. The weird part is it's still running hoses, which I'm running AN lines on the, whether it's for the transmission to the cooler, we're going to run AN lines, mostly because I have the flaring tool. So the actual AN fittings are not too expensive if you're going right to the hard lines. And from the hard line, I can actually put the fittings on and go to a soft line for the transmission, fuel tanks, and stuff like that. I've had really good luck with Aeroflow. They're full flow, not sponsored or anything, but they're full flow. A lot of the ones you get online, they have a narrowing of the passageway, so you're not getting a full AN6. It's a little bit smaller. See, 1945 Speed and Customs. If you haven't checked out his channel, and you really need to, his team that he has down at his shop is top notch. They build some absolutely freaking badass stuff. And he's also, I'm going to say this, he's a lunatic. He does the Race of Gentlemen. And if you get an opportunity, look up the Race of Gentlemen. It should be renamed to the Race of Mentalgen. And so I did a lot of work with Hemmings over there, and one of the guys, his name is Dan Stoner. He's an awesome dude. He's very stuffed into the world of that era, and he's got some pretty, I'm going to use the term some bitchin' T-bodies with Hemi. It's like he's like the legit OG kind of guy. Rings, SoCal vibe, and everything. Greaser, right? So he was telling me about the story. The very first Race of Gentlemen, it was down on the beach in California. It was at this ritzy 5-star hotel, and so the guy who runs the actual event was able to convince the guys over there, hey, you want us to do this? It's gentlemen. It's 30 cars. 1930s, 40s cars. We're gonna race them on the sand on the beach. It's gonna be really cool. So here's these guys with open head Hemis, straight up greasers. And some of the people are driving there with their pristine restoration 30s cars with the white scarf and the goggles, and they're like boop doop doop pop 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 pop, and they're here these other guys sitting there just throttle body opening up, pop, 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 pop. They're just slamming their old Hemis, just fucking going wild, right? And so the Race of Gentlemen, it's one of my bucket list things I want to do. I almost had an opportunity to do an event with Hemmings where we went there. We were going to film a series on it, but unfortunately things didn't happen. And it would have been so much fun. And then 1945 Speed and Customs, if you ever have an opportunity to go to their shop, they're incredible. He has this one, I want to say it's a T-bucket. It's got this wicked freaking awesome engine that sits right behind him, and he sits there and he drives crazy stuff. It's he did a Mustang a few years ago. I feel like it's more than a few years ago now. It was one of the very first Coyote swap Mustangs. I'm not a Mustang guy, and if I was ever to get a Mustang, it'd be like a 71, 72 fastback. There's something about those I really like them. But that Mustang, oh man, that was peak Mustang. Let's see, that was way off center field. Sorry, guys. The red Mustang we built was actually a GM red, torch red. Okay. So speaking of that Mustang is just. He also did a 2JZ swapped Camaro that was really sweet. Let's see. Buddy says it's going to be a new truck when done. By the way, better than modern junk. Yes. So, for tee-hee giggles, right? I was on GM and I was looking at dualies. Not that I was planning on buying one. I just wanted to put one together, see what it costs. It was surprised. It was 40 grand. No, sorry, 40 grand. 74 grand. Which I was really surprised. I was expecting it to be over 100. And you had almost no options. They had 4 color options. I was hoping to get a red. They only had this really dark blue, which was okay. The grill on those things are hideous. So I went from GM to Chevy, and they had red, but still the grill's I don't really like it. It's not as bad as the GM one, but the headlights to me, nope, I hate them. The square body has style, and they only get better the further back you go. Thomas says the Race of Mental Gen sounds like my kind of race. Oh yeah, dude, they're nuts. Let's see. Finnegan did a 2JZ in an old Challenger. I don't want to bust on Finnegan on that. It was cool. That thing was like a legitimate death trap. The thing is, he put a 2JZ GE in to that car, which, so sitting next to me right here is a 7M GTE. The 7M GEs, 7M GTEs, 7M GEs, yeah. There's a significant difference between those two engines. They can't handle. They're not even the same ballpark. And then when you go from the 7M GTEs to the 2JZ GTE and the 2JZ GE, they are like, we're talking. One can handle up to almost 1,000 horsepower, maybe a little bit more. Like some people have done pretty wild crap with those, and the other one's going to break at like 500. You're just going to have guts falling out of it. There's a big, like, you can't even use the same head. The blocks have different. Everything's wonky on them. You can't use the intake manifold off the 2JZ GTE on the 2JZ GE. So there's a big difference. And speaking of straight sixes, I have an engine over there which was in that one video. We're going to do a full breakdown on that. We're going to compare this. It's 03. It's an 03 4200 Atlas engine, also known as the Marabera. And I'm going to compare that to the engine I put into the Supra, which is a V8. And I think it's one of the funniest thing in the world because I love LS engines. They're awesome. And I'm very happy with the one I have inside Buick. And if I ever want to put the old 455 in, which is sitting over there, we can put that back in there, no problem. You could do the swap without cutting anything, as long as you stick with the TH400. It's a pretty easy bolt in and undo. But they're getting wild. Like an LQ4 and all of the salvage yards locally are like $4,000 plus, which is used with over 100,000 miles, which is stupid. Pre-COVID, I was picking them up for like $350. It's absolutely wild how expensive they got. Now you can pick up these 4200s, which make more horsepower than the 4.8 liter LS and way less, and are interesting, right? So compare that to V8 American to a straight six American, whereas you get the 2JZs, which are over 10 grand to 20 grand for the 2JZ GTEs. Stupid money, right? You could pick up those 1U ZFEs for $480. They may have gotten a little bit more than that. And a whole donor car for like $1,500. If it's a LS400, you have to get a SC400 rear mounted sump if it's going in a car, or if it's a truck, you can put the 1UZ in it. But I'm running almost 7, it's like 16.7 pounds of boost through it. It's got 24,000 miles on it. Back to the square body. Sorry, I won't like. So yeah, I've never been a real fan of 2JZs. I think there's a lot of hype. But they can make 2,500 horsepower. Are you going to make 2,500 horsepower? No, then why do you care? Also, it costs you a lot of money to do that. You make 1,600 with an LS for a lot less. Square body. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with the what is it called? Caution red, whatever it is. Whatever I picked it up from Rust-Oleum. It's a tractor paint or utility paint. Utility vehicle paint. I don't know. Whatever. It was the least expensive thing I could get away with. Oh, so Thomas says you could see me putting a turbo on the Atlas. Oh, you've read my mind. That's my goal. I'm praying to the Lord. Things are going the way that I want them to do in my head, because we may have a donor or a new home for that engine. And they make front-facing intake manifolds for that, so it could be a lot lower. I need to do the 07 head, because the 07 head with the 07 computer will allow me to run the 07 head will be about 40 more horsepower. Also, it's an aluminum valve cover, which you can move the oil filler so it's not in the way, because it's a tall engine. But so isn't any of the other straight sixes, whether it's the big block straight six that GM had there, the 292, 292, 290, 292, 292. I think it's a 292. Whatever. The one we put in the panel truck over at Hemmings. They're tall. The Atlas engine is really tall because it's a four-wheel drive thing, and it's got the stupid axle that drives through or runs through the transmission. And I wish they had just put a rear sump in it like they did with the Cheyenne with the straight 6 or straight 5. In which what you can do is you can buy an rear oil sump pan, or there's a lot of people that show how to cut up a Cheyenne 5-cylinder and put two of them together and have enough of a rear sump and front sump to make it work. Or you can make one out of sheet metal or buy one out of sheet metal, and then just make sure in the front of it you put two little baffles that run the length of the front of the bottom of the oil pan, so that the windage doesn't constantly slap the oil around, because the oil comes down the sides of the block and then return to the sump. So make sure you do something about that. Buddy says it has 4-wheel drives. Yeah, that car it's wild. It's just, when they first got that thing, which was a dirt car, I believe, they were showing they fixed all of it, but that thing was scary. Like, I would not have driven that on the road. That was a lot of cojones to do that. I also want to say, you guys are the reason why I do this, mostly so that I keep myself on task and get the projects done. But this is fully sponsored off of my poor financial decisions. I have no sponsors. If you guys want to help, LunarOutlaw.com, you can pick up our merch there, and you can become a member to the channel. I'm going to be releasing the videos 1 week ahead of time underneath the Lawman membership, and then it'll roll out the following week. So I'm just doing that so that I can fund all this, because I know one of the big things coming up is a $1,000 drive shaft. So if you want to help the channel out, I appreciate you all. And if you're wondering why the drive shaft is $1,000, it's a 2-piece drive shaft for that truck, because it was a cowboy Cadillac. It is long. It's a long truck. It's going to need a new carrier bearing too, because that thing is trashed. The interior of the truck. So we're going to transition for all you guys that are just now coming into the channel for the live stream. One of the big things we're going to be doing, of course, we had the 350 pulled. I'm holding on to the TH400 for future, so now I have 2 TH400s, one out of a Buick and one that is out of that truck. And then, of course, the Buick has the TH400 mounted to the 6.0 LQ9. But I need to replace the upper-lower control arms, replace the bushings. The bushings for the body need to be replaced. Most of the rust that are on it, I can just clean it all off with my hand. And so what we're going to do is, for the winter time, I'm going to clean it off with my hand. I'm going to spray on the rust reformer and let it just do its stuff. And then in the springtime, we'll go through, re-prep everything so that anything that's exposed, I'll respray it again. And then once I respray it in the spring, I'll add roll cage paint. This is a combination that I actually learned from Terry McGeehan. One of the things I always did whenever I was filming over at Hemmings was talk to Terry McGeehan. He's been in the industry for a very long time. And if you go to Hemmings and you haven't learned something from Terry McGeehan, who's was the editor of Muscle Machine, now he's editing for the Bible of the classic car industry, because unfortunately we did see the end of Muscle Machines and classic car this year. He's just an absolute wealth of knowledge. So I've done it for the Buick and I've done it for the back half of the truck so far, and they all look great. It looks like I still just sprayed it the other day, and the Buick I was driving as a daily. Not driving it now because there's salt on the road. But he asked, do I still have the Golden Eagle Jeep? Yes. So I've actually offloaded a lot of vehicles to keep things going. I end up selling, I'm down to the oldest being the 63 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. That's going to my daughter. Then I have the next oldest is going to be the 70 Buick Skylark, which I'm not getting rid of that car. Um, I have the 1989 Toyota Supra. I'm not getting rid of that. I've had that for a very long time. The 91 Toyota Supra. That's my youngest son's. The 89 pickup truck, square body. And the next oldest will be the '06 Jeep Wrangler Golden Eagle Edition. I was with my dad when he bought that at the dealership. And that's actually my oldest son's vehicle. So when they're old enough, they're, 5 and 3, so they have a while to go. But yeah, they're and then I have my 2012 Chevy Caprice PPV, which is a blast. That's the vehicle I commute all the kids to school with. I originally was going to buy that Trailblazer for the wintertime. It's just it wasn't safe to put the kids in it. So there's an engine sitting in here. As far as the Buick, the 91 Supra, which is the red Supra, and the Jeep, nothing's really going to be happening on those without them. So I have some plans for the Buick. The Buick is, 63, has no seat belts because it was the last year as an option, and that Buick has 0 options. It was which is neat, just bare bones, has nothing. We're going to add disc brake conversion, which makes it increases the size of everything. So we're going to have to get different wheels. And eventually, I'd like to save up for a set of, they look era correct. They're actual spoke wheels. It's going to be, it looks factory correct. It's just nicer. Slightly bigger, but not by much, just enough to be able to fit the larger brake system in it. And like 2-inch thick white walls. That would look really sweet. Keep it the same color. Fix some rust damage on it. Not much. There's a small hole in the floor, and for some reason the driver's side door rotted on the bottom. I don't for the life of me know why. And just so it doesn't, I'm going to teach the kids to be able to maintenance their own vehicle, but I'm going to do something I learned at Hemmings, which is Terry McGean put a modern drivetrain in their 69 Chevelle. It was done really, really well, to the point where he was able to put it in with the TH400 and do no cutting of the firewall or anything. So what we'll do is we'll probably take the Buick and the engine out of the Buick, which was out of a Cadillac, and put it into the Cadillac in such a way that nothing is disturbed. The original engine and transmission, which is, no one will touch that transmission locally. It has some issues and it needs to be rebuilt. I want to take it all out, put it in a crate so they can all go back in someday down the road. But as Samantha's driving it, it'll be reliable, and I won't have to worry about the engine, throwing a rod and then it's no longer parts, number matching. The cool thing is if you do a modern engine swap and don't cut anything, remember you can put it all back the way it was, and you don't have to worry about sacrificing the original drivetrain so that you can drive it. Disc brakes. Oh, and seatbelts. I need seatbelts. I've told people that I was going to do the LS swap in that car someday, and they're like, "You're going to ruin it." It's like, no, sitting for 30 years in a pool barn ruined the car. It's got all kinds of problems because of it, especially the interior. If it hadn't sat in a pole barn, would have been that white, that nice pure white with that blue interior. That most of it should be able to be saved, but a lot of it is like heavily damaged. We're not going to be changing the radio or anything like that. People are like, oh, you're going to put a modern all this stuff and you're going to ruin it. You're going to put like, I don't know, big speakers in it. No, like it's got vacuum tube radio. It sounds amazing. So I keep getting distracted and going off on tangents. Well, get back on the square body now. Back over the square body. One of the big things is the interior is going to stay virtually the way it was. We are going to upgrade a few things. One, it only has AM radio, so I want to get an AM FM radio that looks ear correct and install that. I'm going to put a lot of sound deadening in it because it's a square body and they make all kinds of noise. And we have a new dash pad. I have a Dakota digital dashboard. And pretty much anything else, if I can't clean it, we'll eventually replace it. But, the kids are going to be in it. So, hey, what's up, Lester? Just now saw that you were in here. Do you guys have any questions about the engine choice for the square body, or why I chose the 8.1 liter Vortec? I mean, I'll tell you now. The reason why was one of our work trucks has it, and it's been heavily, like, super reliable, heavily abused, and it just never wants to stop. It's got over 200,000 miles on it. And one day, one of our guys was driving it, not paying attention. The water pump broke on it. He was sitting at 90, it was like 90 some odd degree weather. He was sitting in the vehicle smoking with the air conditioning running and music playing and everything. Couldn't hear over all of it that it was sitting there making the most horrific whining noise and overheating. And it ended up driving home back to the shop. No problem. Put a new water pump, kept going. No problems whatsoever. Also, that we have a 5-speed over a 3-speed, so you have more gears, and we can tow anything with it. Yeah, Buddy says cars are made to be made to drive. Letting us sit is the worst. It's the there's a term that a lot of people like to throw around. This is museum quality. One of the things that we were doing at Hemmings was taking their old, museum vehicles and then getting them road worthy again. The words, the all the cars in their museum were used annually and maintained up until, like, I want to say the 90s. So if it was in the museum, it was driven, and every year they had an employee appreciation, so the employees could take the cars out and drive them. So they all had their legs stretched. A lot of them were used by, Terry, the old owner of the Hemmings magazine, and not Terry McGean, but Terry. I can't remember his last name, but at some point they just stopped, and then they had no one to maintain them, and they just had someone to dust them. And so, scary enough, a lot of them sat with gas in the tank. So a lot of them, some of them weren't, but some of them were. So the tanks need to be replaced or refurbished, and all the engine components were, we were replacing all the seals. It just, like you said, sitting is the worst thing you could possibly do to it. It ruins it. So museum quality is a terrible thing. No better than, as far as mechanically, no better than pulling something out of a barn. Thomas says 8.1 liter Vortec engine is a great engine. My van has one over 374,000 miles on it, still runs strong. Yeah, it's so you have one of the 3500 Express vans, I'm assuming. One of the modifications I had to do is because I pulled mine out of a 2001 3500 GMC that had a 4-wheel drive, so I had to convert the transmission over to 2-wheel drive. And the other thing is, so the alternator sits on the driver's side above, on the top of the engine, and then the alternator sits there. The AC unit sits on the passenger side, and it actually interferes with the frame of the square body. So what I found, because I was like, well, I'll figure out whatever we can do to move things around if I had it fabricated. And it turns out the 3500 GMC, so he says he has a Savannah. The Savannah, any of the vans, the stuff is relocated up on the top. So the driver's side on top ends up having a AC unit, and the passenger side top has the alternator. So it moves it up and out of the way of the frames. So I'm pretty excited about that. Also, I used, oh man, I'll have to look at it, and I'll give them credit because it was like $200. It was like 250 maybe for all the components. My buddy Junior said, because he used to do a lot of LS swaps into things like Land Cruisers, square bodies, whatever. And so he told me it was Cold Tubes or something. Man, I wish I remembered what the name was off the top of my head. So I called the place up. Hold that thought up right back. Can I reach it? I can't reach it. Okay. Cold Hose. Okay. So I don't want to lose this, but it's called Cold Hose. And I don't have a phone number on here for them. No. You can email them at sales@coldhose.com. I have no phone number on here. But if you call them and tell them what you're doing, they will help you out like really, really well. I'm very pleased with them. So I called them up. The lady answered. I said, hey, I was told you guys are like the way to go here. How much should I tell you? Does it say? No. So I asked her, like, hey, I have a 1989 square body crew cab, 8-foot bed. Technically, it's a 1-ton. It's basically, if you're doing it into an 87. So everything pretty much is the same sort of. Suburbans are the same. I know the Suburbans are the same. I believe they're the same, irregardless. But I'm putting in a 2001 8.1 liter Vortec engine in it. I have the relocation from a express van, top of the engine, passenger or driver side. I need hoses to be able to get that to integrate into the modern system, or a modernized square body system, as far as the more modern HVAC fluid stuff. I'm not an HVAC guy. I don't know. But she said, not a problem. I gotcha. She bundled it all up, and actually, I'll show you what it all looks like. So, other than the shipping label, or packing label thing, and a bunch of other stuff, what we got was the actual piece that goes onto the air or AC unit itself, the fittings that screw into it, the ones that get crimped, and you can send these back down to them to be crimped, but I have a person that can crimp these. And the approximate length of hose, you have to measure it approximately where it's going. They sent me the approximate length of the hose. So this whole thing cost me, I want to say close to $200, shipped to my door, and I'm really happy about it. I don't know why I'm looking at it. I have right here. Hey, Lafayette. I probably butchered your name. Happy New Year's to you as well. Am I still with Hemmings? I've never been with Hemmings. So I have a company called Kilowatt Studios. We do video production for specifically automotive. And I've worked with them. I've worked with places like Foss Productions. They do stuff for themselves. Ryan is the guy that he's awesome. He's the man, the myth, the legend himself. He does a lot of work also with like Motor Trend and stuff. So as of this year right now, I'm scaling way back to get back to this. I really need to work on, I've abused or I've neglected this channel way too much. The automotive industry as a whole is kind of like in a very bad spot. So I want to, like, not where we are as like YouTube creators, but like Motor Trend going away. I'm just kind of like taken back by everything, and want to focus more on that. And at the end of the day, this is where my passion is. I'm glad that Hemmings is they seem to be rolling on their own content now. I was very happy to and lucky to have been part of, the beginning of that. But as of right now, yeah, no, I am not making any content for Hemmings anymore. But I do recommend, if you follow anything, make sure you keep following Junior's content. He's a wealth of knowledge, and every time I was over there, I tried learning from him, and I'm very happy with the content I was making with him, because every time I was editing the videos and rewatching the videos, it was really fun because he always had like little one-liners that were great. And the cool thing is, like, so when you meet some of these people, we did I've been able to work with a lot of really awesome people, and I'm very blessed to have been in that position to be able to do that, whether it was Mike Musto, Dan Stoner, Douglas Glad, Terry McGeehan. Let's see, I got to do work with David Freiberger with episode, I don't remember what episode it was, but season 11 with their Pontiac there, the T37. Yeah, I think it's T37. Whether it was any of these guys, they have actually. I was really excited. I was able to hang out with not Finnegan. Wow, my God. Brain is totally collapsing in on me right now. Wow. But they all have personalities you find online, and then in real life, a lot of times they're close, but they're not exact. But a lot of those guys really are very, very much the way that you would picture them. Like Dan Stoner, he's the greaser kind of guy. He's exactly what you expect. Mike was actually a little bit more subdued. Like, he was very quiet, very nice guy, just very quiet, more observing what's going on than being bombastic. Steve was like the man. He really was. Anyways, Steve Dulcich was the man. Like, again, we were talking, his name was like, oh yeah, I love boats. We were talking about boats. It was really cool. Matt was really cool. We did a lot of work with Matt and David. Those were the classic car guys. They did the panel truck. He was both of them were incredible writers. In fact, Dave wrote the article about my 91 Supra. He did an incredible job on that. It was a fun one. The build was like 2 weeks. We did the Mustang Rehab. That's on. I didn't shoot that. I didn't produce that. That was Steve Dothit that produced that series. No, Ryan Dothit. Sorry, Ryan Dothit produced that. And I can't remember the name of the channel that's on, the cable channel. But I was one of the wrenches on that. I had a lot of fun with that. It's cool. I never wanted a Ford Fox body, but I could definitely see owning a Ford Fox body at this point. Also, I have a new shop cat. Oh, he's a big boy. And he's gone. Nope, and he's back. He doesn't like to be pinned down. Here, let's sit right there, buddy. Don't fall. He likes to hang out on the engines. It's pretty funny. So how's everyone's New Year? Yep, his name's Popsicle. He's the man, the myth, the legend. And the last time we took him to the vet. He was a good boy. He is absolutely huge though. No, don't be doing that to the couch, buddy. It's like, you don't tell me what to do. I'm a cat, not a dog. This was the cat distribution system. I wasn't planning on another cat, but he likes to hang out with me when I was doing all the wiring on the 8.1 liter Vortec. He's sitting there chilling when I was using the impact gun, chilling while I was fixing a dent in the radiator core support, hammering on it. Just kind of looked at me like, "Why are you making all that noise, bud?" I'm like, "God, I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you, man. It needs to be done." So Buddy says Mustangs are okay, but I'd rather have a third generation Camaro IROC. You know, I used to think the same way as you until I found out what F and F body stands for, and that is frustration. We did a video series. So Hemmings did a video series on the Camaro. It's I think an 87 or 89. I don't remember. But it had some issues when it was done. Whoa, that was a good jump button. Holy cow. He cleared like a good 7 feet. Don't make, remind me to not make you mad. You'll jump right on my head. Anyways, so it had some issues. One of the biggest things was a fuel pump that was going bad. And we were like, well, we want to do this right. We're Hemmings. So, because Junior's like, well, we have a couple options. Most people will just cut the floor and then put a panel in there. And I hate that. People do that in the Mark III Supers all the time. I loathe that. I don't care what seal you're going to do. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It's wrong. Drop the fuel. Especially on the Supers, you can do that without even lifting the car out to take the tank out. It's dumb. Don't do it. And he's like, we could do that. I don't want to do that because we're Hemmings. We want to do it right. So we're like, okay, what do we have to do to get the fuel tank out? Oh, my good freaking Lord. You have to drop the rear axle. The whole thing has to come out. You have to move everything. You fight with every gosh darn piece of freaking steel that's in the way, plastic, everything. And then it's just a nightmare to get out. All because someone decided they wanted, well, one, you had to replace it. Two, we had to take it out to replace it. And then we had to replace the actual tank because someone, when putting a speaker system in the back, drilled a freaking self-driller through it and put a hole in it. Freaking thing. Typical orange cat hijinks. He's actually pretty smart, but yeah, he's a wild boy. Don't worry about mispronouncing my name. Just think of me as a friend from Illinois. I'm glad to see that you're getting back into the basics, and I agree with cars are in a bad place right now. Yeah, and it sucks. It really, really, really sucks because I've always been passionate about cars. To me, I was 14 when I got my first one. I worked hay baling. I parked cars at a what do you call those? A fair, the Scotticoke Fair. I parked cars at the fair. I worked the grandstand all summer. I did a lot of work to be able to afford my first car. And as soon as I was legally able to drive in New York State, which was 17, learner's permit, but still, it was a source of freedom. Cars represent more than just, going to point A to point B. It was going and just, sometimes you didn't know where you're going to end up. You just went, and you get into some hijinks. I mean, I had a blue 89 Supra in high school, which was more power than I needed as a high schooler. Looking back, they're not very fast cars unless you do like wild stuff like I have to my black one. Yes. So, but he did. Yeah, you have to remove the exhaust too. You have to remove the exhaust and the rear axle to get to the fuel tank to remove that. It's dumb. It's so dumb. It's like I never ever want to deal with one of these. And then we were going to do a video on the driver, the driver's seat's broken because it just goes back and forth. There's no, the mechanism doesn't do anything. You just grab it. You could slap it back and forth and never locked engaged. And so we did a whole video on it. and we end up producing a video, and it went out into the world. But we spent like a solid day trying to figure out what the heck was going on with the seat, why we couldn't get it to freaking latch. And it turns out Terry comes out and goes, "Oh yeah, no, those are they're what was it called? They latch based off of like if your car is parked on a hill, it would engage the latch because it just went doop, and it is like gravity or momentum driven. So if like you had a wreck, it would lock itself and the seat wouldn't fold." We're figuring out what's wrong with this thing. There was nothing wrong with it. It's just a weird, quirky thing that GM did. It was momentum driven and gravity. It was just the silliest crap in the whole wide world. But he said, "I still wish I had my first 67 C10. 67 C10s are freaking badass, bud. With the 396 4-speed. That thing must have been freaking awesome." Yeah, so I went with the square body because it was my step grandfather's pickup truck. Thing's awesome. And so for me, it's kind of iconic, right? So he used it for towing his boat. It was a work truck. It was his to and from work. Didn't get a bunch of miles. A lot of the miles were long, but it's a comfortable, great thing. But you get into the pre, traditional thought of square body. You get to the 67s. You get into the late 40s. Like those are wicked cool. And then like the 46 and older, you get those the World War II ones. They're really cool because they're iconic. They have like no room in them. They're tiny. But yeah, the old school C10s they're like timeless. In fact, one of the guys that would routinely come by and he actually helped out did a lot of helping out on the square body build. His name's C10 Glenn, and he's like the wealth of knowledge of C10s. He's got a bunch of them, and he's building one wicked cool truck right now. But yeah, I can't afford one of those. I can't afford what square bodies have gotten. They're crazy. Bad Tree Productions. Now listen to me, all of you that are still here, the 11 of you guys that are currently watching this. If you haven't subscribed to Bad Tree, what are you doing? Said, "What up, Moon Man? Happy New Year." Yep. New year, 2025. New everything. I have this week's episode already uploaded. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how to make this work. But if you're a Lawman member, you get special access to stuff. You help the channel out, and you get a 1 week heads up on the video. You get to watch it for 1 week before everyone else does. And then the 1 week will end. It goes live, and then everybody gets to watch it. I'm self-funded because I'm financially irresponsible. I don't have anybody behind me backing me. The Supra was built to call out somebody, and that never happened. But it was the principle of the matter. So we threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at that thing. And the Buick was I like to build things. So it's a very expensive hobby. So if you want to help out the channel, you can become a member over at YouTube, or you can head over to LunarOutlaw.com. Read the article I wrote. I'm going to be writing an article about the Buick. One of these days, the articles are free. You just go and read them. I have T-shirts there. I have stickers. The T-shirts will be like these things right here, my hat, everything, the sweaters. They'll all be redirected to Blacktop Yacht Club. They are the best quality shirts, hats, anything I could find. I've gone through different companies to make stuff, and they all sucked. He doesn't normally make stuff for just YouTube content creators. We became friends over a project, and I was like, "Hey, I really love your clothes. They hold up in the wash really, really well." Like, we're talking some of the shirts I'm still wearing from when I bought the Buick. It was 3 years ago now. They just hold up really, really well. This is like, they're soft. Teespring, I had them. After 2 washes, the stuff would fall off. This I've had for 4 months, maybe. and I like it. I wear it, and it holds up. The sweaters are pro tip. The sweaters, that's where it's at. They're super comfortable. They're soft. My wife has stolen a couple of them from me. They're really, really nice. So all of that translates back into helping the channel out, and I appreciate you all for doing that. Let's see. I want to actually ask a couple of you guys what you think about what happened with Motor Trend, because that was really crappy. Like they're like the staple of the automotive like umbrella of the media stuff. Just really sucks. Buddy says, glad you're rebuilding the square body. That truck has a lot of cool memories you can't replace. Yeah, and it's like, I mean, besides it's cool. Like it is cool. It's freaking long. I love how long it's comically long, right? Every time I'm driving it, I feel like I either should be listening to sea shanties or watching Spaceballs the moment I get home because of how long, comically long the spaceship was in the beginning of it. But there's a couple reasons why. So I want to say all in on that truck right now with getting the truck, which I traded a day's worth of labor for, which, you know, time is valuable. We'll just leave it there. I traded a day's worth of labor for it. And so I have that in the back of my mind, how much that translates, how much, if I was to go do a film production for a day, that's really comes out to being 2 days. So I have that figured into this cost. And with all the panel stuff from LMC, which I'm actually finding they're the least expensive of stuff. Like I still need to order a couple things like the brace, which I might be able to clean up. I haven't really decided if I want. It's like $15. No, it's $10 for a new one, so I might just buy it. And that's the latch support that goes down to the bottom of the radiator core support. It's kind of hard to justify the time to fix it when I can just buy one for $10. But it's not like the factory one isn't flimsy. It's pretty flimsy. But it's just 15 grand maybe. Right now I think I'm at 11 grand. With the drive shaft, it's going to be another probably $1,000 for that. So I think with paint and everything said and done, it'll be between 12, 13 and 15 grand. Which buying a square body right now, you're not going to be able to do that. You're looking at 20 grand for a decent one. And a fully restored, which this won't be fully restored, but it'll be nice and clean. It'll be a nice clean truck. But those are going for like 40. Some of them, like the crazy ones, are going for like 80. I can't believe it. I can't believe how expensive square bodies have gotten. And then you compare that to a modern truck. And I don't want the screen in the center of the console. I don't, or the dashboard. I hate that. I just want a truck, you know? I don't need all this crap. And that's the best part about the square body. It doesn't have a giant GPS, cinematic experience going on in the front of it, where at night I was driving one of my mom's vehicles there, dropping them off to go on a vacation. It was like 2 years ago or something. And on the way home, I was driving it, and all the freaking dashboard, just half the dashboard's lit up. And don't need any of that crap. 1945 Speed and Custom says, where am I getting the drive shaft from? My best experience so far with drive shafts and a lot of the machine work ends up coming from Universal in Albany. And I'm figuring $900 because my buddy just had one for his, actually Junior had one made up for his all-terrain panel truck that he has there. It's freaking awesome. It's, he takes it for like dirt bike events in Maine, New Hampshire, sorry. And so it's 2-piece drive shafts. It's going to need a new carrier bearing. That's new U-bolts, or U-joints rather. It's going to need the yoke is already on the Atlas transmission. It's bolted on, but it's going to need everything from side to side, new carrier bearing, everything, all of it's going to have to be replaced. And you can't just make one to adapt it, because both, I mean, they have to be balanced together. And it's going to be $900 every time I turn around. I wasn't planning on buying a new bed for it, and needed a new bed, because as soon as I started taking it apart, I'm like, oh my God, this is really bad. So I had to buy a new bed. I was planning on just replacing the sides. Buddy says, you getting snow tonight? We're getting 6 inches. So around me, I think we're in the 12-inch band. Yay. And being where I am, I think we're like 1,200 feet on the windward side of the mountain. Figure another 8 on top of it. So see, 9 o'clock now. I'll probably go to bed around midnight. I'll go out and I'll knock all the snow off of the carports. And when I wake up, I'll knock the snow off the carports. But I don't need them falling. The caddy's underneath one of the carports. The pickup truck's underneath one. My new to me Bolin's tractor, which my papa used to be a dealer for them, and he had a bunch of them. I was supposed to get one when he passed, and my uncle decided he wanted to sell them all. So I've been looking one for years, and I finally got one this spring, and it's a Bolin 1800. I wanted 2000, but 1800. It has everything I need. It's a beautiful tractor. It's in great shape, and I'd rather not have the carport fall on it. Once the 8.1 liter is inside the square body, then I can put that tractor in the garage. But until then, I can't. So yeah, no snow collapsing carports, and it sucks because there's this guy down the road about a mile and a half. He's got a really cool old Mustang and a couple of European cars. Don't ask me what they are. I don't know. I'm not into old European cars. But he got a new carport, had it all set up, and the freaking carport got caught in our wind, and it twisted it all up, and it's all wrapped around that car, and I'm like, that sucks. My carports are Harbor Freight. They were like $250. I went online, read all of the reviews, which was like, hey, snow loads are the death of these things. So what you want to do is you actually, to prevent them from collapsing, you go through and you put 1.25 inch conduit between the two bases, which separates it, and then you put your set screws in it so that it holds it, and that actually keeps the legs from wanting to go out. And then you get rid of the crap that they send to anchor it down. You get better anchors. You use actual ratchet straps, and you ratchet strap from one side on the top to the other side on the top in like an X pattern and stuff. I can't do it with the truck because it takes up, it exists in the space that it needs to be. But for the Buick above, not the Buick, the Cadillac, above the Cadillac, there's like this whole freaking gusset system of ratchet straps so that it doesn't fall on top of it. See, 1945 Speeding Custom says cheaper and, in my opinion, nicer than Universal. If you were going to say who, I don't know. If you know someone that's cheaper and better quality, I really like those guys down there. They do all the machine work that I've had done, and except for like the Buick was done by someone else, but he's dead. That's a tragic story. Unfortunately, long story short, he went up in an experimental helicopter with his daughter, and unfortunately, both of them died. So, besides the fact I no longer have him as a machinist, that's like, I can't even imagine. It's just like terrifying. But yeah, if you know someone less expensive that's going to do a really good job, I'm trying to budget as much as I can. I went way too crazy on the Supra. The Buick, that was reasonable. I think all in, from me flying down, buying it, and to where it sits right now, I think I'm in it by like 12 grand, which, having a 1970 Buick Skylark that's a daily driver with an LS swap, a TH400 behind it, I think that's not bad. The Supra is considerably more than that, though. Like, I realized that I could have bought the 25th anniversary Mark V Toyota Supra for what I have inside that Supra. It was the principle of the matter. I never said I was financially responsible. But I am stripping it for paint. It's getting paint in the spring. I figure if I'm painting the truck, I might as well paint the car. Buick is going to stay the way it is. The muscle cars look great, ratty. Supras look like crap. I don't care if it's a 240Z. Like any of these cars, if they're ratty, they look like garbage. Some of the old Datsuns can kind of get away with it, but muscle cars look sweet. But I'm very pleased with how the paint came out on the bed. It's very clean, it's very straight, which is counterintuitive because I did it outside. I had a couple bugs decide they want to go in it, but they were actually able to clean out fairly easy. And I live on a road that doesn't get a lot of travel, so dirt and dust and stuff doesn't get kicked up too much. It's just I waited a month to paint it because a day that wasn't 95% humidity or 100 degrees was just far and few between. I ended up getting it on a day that was like, I want to say it was 80 degrees and 40% humidity. The paint sprayed freaking awesome. It laid down so beautifully. I could not freaking believe it. You would have thought you were in a paint booth, minus the butts. Now, 1945 Speed and Custom has a really nice paint booth. I think that's a proper paint booth. But the last time I was there, oh man, I need to go down to the shop again and just kind of, bring a 6-pack down and hang out. He had a Carmageddon going together. That Carmageddon, I was like, no shit. He's sitting there. He's fat. Or him and his guys are like literally fabricating every single part of that thing. And he showed me. He's like, can you tell the difference between the factory part of the floor pan and the one that they actually sat there with the metalworking equipment, whether it was the English wheel, the hammer, and everything. He's like, can you tell the difference? I'm like, no. I literally could not tell the difference. So we have some pretty cool talent locally. 1945 Speed and Customs and LAL Customs. LAL does almost I think exclusively Broncos, but those two guys, their shops are freaking awesome. Paul from Fab Rats buys his drive lines from Universal, if I remember correctly. I've had really good luck from Universal. Just I'm not looking forward to the $1,000 bill on that though. World's smallest violent. What are you going to do? You need a drivetrain or a drive shaft. I'm not to that point yet though, so it's like tax season's coming up. So yeah, we're let's see. The next step, like I was saying earlier, is to get the full front rebuilt. I mean, strip everything off of it. It's all got to go. I need to sit down with the needle scaler. I don't think I'm going to need too much needle scaling, but needle scaler, clean it all off, go all the way down through the bottom of it, make sure there's no brake lines left, nothing. Make sure it's all repainted with the rust reformer. And then once that's done, if I get a day that's more than 40 degrees, I will do the rust reformer and then put the roll cage paint on it. I did that with the Buick. It was only 40 degrees and it cured really well. Not saying you should do it that way. It is too cold to spray it, but it cured. So, I'll get away with it. And then I have stainless steel brake lines that have to go on. I have to make fuel lines, which again, they have to go off. So if you're ever doing an LS swap, I recommend getting a Corvette. Do I have one over here? No, because it's out there. A Corvette fuel filter, because you can run your line into it. It will pressure regulate it to 58 psi and have your return line. If you're doing turbos and you need like the Super's running like almost 70 psi, and it's got much bigger fuel lines and all AN fittings, that doesn't work. But if you're just like the Buick, I have one filter. The truck is going to have two because I have two fuel tanks, fuel pumps that are run constantly because I don't have all of the equipment I need to run the system with the ECU. So I'm going to run it like it was from the factory. Are the cab mounts solid? The steel of the cab mounts are great. The steel of the actual body is in good shape. So I'm going to, clean it up, spray it. But I have all new bushings. Everything is new. The bushings, they're not in good shape. They are falling. Actually, you can see here's the radiator core support bushings right here. They are yeah, they're in really bad shape. But the actual steel between that's sandwiching it together, very solid. There's a little bit of surface rust. The truck rusted very strangely, and that's partly because it was in really good shape when they parked it in the shop. It was in a section of the shop that no one ever went to. It's a big shop, right? It kind of became a table, and no one noticed the roof was leaking there. So it for 20 years, it was leaking in a spot that no one ever went to. And it just, the side just got obliterated. Looks mint. It's almost the right color for mint. Really? You would thought that I just pulled that off of Mars. That's the kind of color that is. So yeah, we have all new cab bushings. We're going to go through. So what we're going to do, pro tip, make sure one side's tight. Take a long 4x4, put it up along the bottom of the actual bed area that you get a good grip onto it. Put another 4x4 from that down to your left, your jack. Just pump one side up. If you have a 2-post lift, I guess you can be fancy and grab it. You can't grab it from the rockers because you just crush them, especially seeing how they need to be replaced badly. I'm gonna have to tackle it because I can't afford to pay someone to do it. I have the rockers, I have the cab corners. I'm not looking forward to doing it because I really want this thing to look really, really, really nice, and I'm worried about screwing it up. But fortunately, realistically, the welds will be where you can't see it, and it's just a matter of getting the new doors on it, having all that perfectly aligned, and then doing the rockers and making sure the rockers are aligned. The cab corners, it is what it is. I have inner and outer cab corners. We're going to just have to do it. We're just going to have to just suck it up, man it up, get the welder, and get it done. But I'm going to hop off. We're going to do this every single week. I'm glad that this worked out a lot better than last week. Last week sucked. I really thought I'm running my smaller cinema camera with everything set up, and I have my lavalier sitting over here and right here, and that's plugged into the computer, which is sitting here like that. Ooh. I'm liking the setup. Well, I'll have to watch a little bit for the audio, see how it turned out. But at the end of the day, yeah, the rocker should be easier than the frame and the Plymouth. You're not kidding. That was miserable. So, yes, it should be a lot easier. It's just I always, I'm my own worst critic about everything. So I'm not one to be like, oh yeah, I'm great at stuff. I'm like, I'm all right. I know enough to be dangerous. So, and to have fun. But that's all I have for you guys. I'm glad you guys hung out. I know I go on tangents. I'm going to try to get some people on here as well so that we can have nice conversations. And come springtime, we can start doing it outside again, where it's nice, fresh air, not in a basement. And yeah, remember, as always, keep your shiny side up, guys. Have fun and God bless.